Hello, and thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Cheyenne and Arapaho Productions podcast. I'm Darren Brown, your host for this awesome podcast we got going. We're about 2 months old now, and today we have the Cheyenne and Arapaho Language and Culture Department with us. Thank you all for joining us. Here, come on, say hi, yeah.
Hello.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Let's get it rolling. So we'll go around the room and introduce yourselves. I want to start with you, Michael.
Yes, my name is Michael Elizondo Jr., and I'm the Executive Director for the Language and Culture Department here with the Cheyenne and Arapaho Tribes. I have been in this position for 1 year now, and I was a former Cheyenne lead apprentice, and I'm happy to be here this morning.
My name is Rainey Faris. I'm the Cheyenne Language and Culture Coordinator. I just took over that position at the beginning of this year. I was a lead apprentice before that, and I've been with the program for about almost 3 years now.
Good morning, Niaket. My name is Shaynna Walker. I am the Arapaho lead apprentice. I've been with the program, I guess, before it was a department since 2016. This is my first starting out with as a lead apprentice. I'm super nervous and scared, but we're going to keep going.
Hey, that's the way to do it. You ever been riding a bike up a hill? You got to keep pedaling. Guess when you stop, you either fall over or you start rolling backwards and you hurt yourself. So you got to keep pedaling. Anyway, okay. So I'm glad you guys are here. What we try to do here on this podcast is highlight all the program. We're going to start with all the programs here in education, which there are a lot. 19 of us, I think, and you're under that umbrella also, right? Under the education department.
No.
Oh, you know what? You're right. I will get into that in just a second. But anyway, we want to highlight all the cool things that are happening at the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes, and then expand it from there. So, yeah, let's start with that. So there was a language department, language program underneath the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes education department, but that recently changed about 2 years ago.
It was voted in on December of 2022.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it doesn't really change the mission so much, but it changes the way that you guys are structured, right?
Yes, and so January of 2023, that's whenever it took effect that it was moved from program to its own department. And so I was, after my time as a Cheyenne lead apprentice, I took other employment during the pandemic, and I was recently serving as the director at Bacon College for the School of Art. And so January of 2023, last year, the tribes, they gave me got a hold of me to talk about being the director for this new department. And so January of last year it took effect, and then I started my position February of last year.
And I think, I'm guessing, I mean, you guys can jump in and correct me, but what it does is, as opposed to being a program, your own department. So I'm assuming that opens up maybe different funding opportunities. But since the program is called Language and Culture, because you can't have one without the other, right? I mean, language people say the word culture, but it includes so much. And, like I've always said, I think, if you had the lyrics to a song and you didn't know the song, well, you could if you didn't know the melody, i.e. the language, you couldn't sing that song properly, So they go hand. You can't have one without the other. So one thing I want to talk about is for people who are listening who may not know, they may not know what the lead apprentice, what that actually means. So which one of you ladies want to talk about it? Because I think it's a really cool way to work the whole language thing.
Well, Michael was a lead apprentice, way before me. Kind of like thrown into that position, but for myself, I had James to kind of like mentor me. James Sleeper.
Yes, all right.
He was the lead apprentice before me. And I learned a lot from him. Thankfully, he's still very active in it, or in sessions, and sessions being, we Zoom, video conference with speakers up north in Wyoming around E16, Arapaho, mainly around there. And then we also Zoom in with Dr. Cowell, James Andrew Cowell.
He's at one of these universities, right?
Yeah, Boulder.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
He's a professor there. But whenever we do sessions, the main focus is to do minimal English. And that's actually really, really difficult to do.
I'm sure.
Sometimes, I think the main thing that makes it difficult is we don't rely on anything else, solely speaking. We don't write anything down. We really zero in on how a verb changes and how, the distinct sounds that a speaker makes.
Yeah, I think it would be easy, I think, to get bogged down. And if you tried to, I'm guessing, if you tried to teach someone how to learn Cheyenne or Arapaho, like we teach people in high school in English class, I don't think that would work at all. And I'm sure it's been tried. Because I think that I'm guessing that the folks you speak with, when you're fortunate to find someone who grew up with it, or they was I call it their primary language, and those people are in their 70s and 80s now. So, would someone, and I guess Mike, really quickly explain to us what the Apprentice program is and how that track works?
Okay. Yes. So back in 2016, the Master Apprentice effort came over here to the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes through an A&A grant. And as Shaynna mentioned, her start was in 2016. That was whenever my start was as well. We started at the same time. And the Master Apprentice effort is focusing in on that immersion method of picking up the language, where Shaynna mentioned we do our best to speak, whether it's Cheyenne or Arapaho, through a session with the first language speaker. And the goal of the Master Apprentice method is to build second language speakers, and through the time that we have with our current fluent speakers.
And one thing you and I have talked about before, I think probably every tribe in the country is dealing with the fact that languages are they're endangered, in danger of becoming extinct. And so I know. Could you give me some numbers really quick? I mean, people may not realize how many. First of all, I got a two-part question. Would you give me the definition of fluent speaker, and then let our audience know how many fluent Southern Cheyenne speakers are here in Oklahoma you have access to, and fluent Southern Arapaho speakers?
Yes. So the actual number is really hard to pin down, although we know it is really low. The definition of a fluent speaker is really broad, but what we go off of is an elder that is a first language speaker of the language. And so someone who was able to speak Cheyenne first and then learned English later. And so the fluent speakers the elder fluent speakers that we work with, they didn't learn English until they were in school, 4 or 5 years old. And there's a really big difference in someone who spoke Cheyenne first and learned English later, in contrast to someone who knew English first and then learned Cheyenne later. Their knowledge is really high in how they pronunciate, and there's a number of people that were first language speakers of the Cheyenne or Arapaho as kids, and so some of them lost that in boarding schools, but then the ones that we work with today were able to get past some of that. Not all of them went to boarding schools, but I would say today I was taking account of how many first language Southern Cheyennes there were, just off the top of my head, and it's roughly around 12 to 15, and those that actively speak it more on a regular basis could kind of be around in that 5 to 10. And so there's always someone, though, that isn't really out there too often in the public that we come across sometimes that does speak Cheyenne. Example, about 4 or 5 years ago, James Sleeper and Shaynna and some of the Arapaho apprentices at the time were looking for other Arapaho speakers that they might come across, and so they were going to a nursing home one time, and then they came across one elder man and asked him if he can speak Arapaho, and he told them "Hua'an," and it means no in Cheyenne. And so James got a hold of me. He said, "Hey, I think you need to go visit this man. It sounds like he knows a lot of Cheyenne." He ended up being an 88-year-old elder that hardly anyone ever mentioned. But I went to go visit him, and he was really, really well versed in the language, and so I know in some families that might not be living in our communities anymore. There might be a few more out there, but it's somewhere in that range, 10, 15. I don't know if it would be over 20, but that's kind of where it is with the Cheyenne language. And so on the Arapaho side, I think Shaynna might have more insight on that.
To our knowledge, there are no first language fluent speakers down here. That's why, earlier when I mentioned, we Zoom, video conference in to Wyoming. That's the main thing that we, really like to target and focus on. So.
Well, and I thank you for clearing that up, because I was, that's what I thought that, but I wanted you guys to confirm it. And that's something else we can get into later, but I haven't let Rainey into the conversation yet. She's been over here being she's being very patient. And I forget how long you all had said you had been in the program, but I know that when we talk about languages, and just from observing these tribes and other tribes, just reading things about them, the truth is, when you lose an elder, you lose so much knowledge, and very often you lose language. And you mentioned boarding schools, man. There's a whole other thing that we can get into. But in my let me just say, I'm not a citizen of this tribe. I'm enrolled in another tribe. So let's get that out of the way. And you guys know that. But I've been adopted, right? I feel like I've been adopted. Every now and then I get a good, every now and then. But I think it appears that, every tribe is in the same situation. They're losing things. But it seems to be that I've met people who may be in their 40s or 50s who have taken it upon themselves to learn some language. But that's rare. It appears to me that there's people who are in their 70s and up who speak it, and then there's a huge gap, and then there's people maybe in the maybe 40 and below, or maybe even 30 and below, who've taken it upon themselves to learn. And kudos to all you folks who are doing it. And I know that the boarding schools had a lot to do with it, but for Rainey, I'll include you in that group of young people because I'm not one of those young people. So tell me why it's a cool job, right? And there's a reason that you guys have been in this position for not just one, but a couple of years. And it's, I mean, I know you wouldn't do it if you didn't have a passion for it. Am I right?
Yeah.
You got to give me more than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just meaningful. It's important. It's tough work, it's hard. Making relationships with these elders, and
Yeah,
seeing
let's
them.
start with that because I'm not I'm just interrupt you for a second. I'll let you finish. But you have to. You can't just walk up. Hey, share me your language. What's your name? Hey, I'm Rainey. So give me some language. No, it doesn't work that way. These people have to trust you. You have to tell them who your that maybe they don't know your folks, and let's talk about that for people who may not know.
Yeah. Usually they know your folks, of course, meeting natives, they want to know who your folks are, who your people are. So a lot of times they know who your family are, they know where you come from, they've been in our communities a long time. And it's just important, because I was someone who didn't get to grow up with my grandma. She passed away when my mom was 14. So a lot of these elders have stories of my folks I didn't get to meet. So we just love them, we really respect them. We cater to them as much as we can, just because the love we have for them, the knowledge they share with us is irreplaceable,
Do you find that they're very appreciative of the fact that you want to learn this language?
Yes, for sure. They tell us every day, every time we speak with them and get to visit with them, they tell us how much it means, how proud of us they are. Yeah, they see the importance of it, and they see how much language loss has happened in their lifetime. So they're really appreciative of the people who want to learn, who have taken initiative to learn, and trying to keep the language alive.
Did you have to some of these elders? Did you find that maybe they were? And this is a question for any of you. Did you find that maybe some of them didn't realize that the situation the language is in, or were they? I can't imagine every one of them was like, "Oh, sure, come on," obviously you said they're appreciative, but was it something that you had to impress upon them that the urgency of the situation?
I think every elder that I've worked with have been pretty well aware of the
That is
state.
good to know. That's good to know.
The one thing that I know, example, when speaking with my grandma whenever she was around was, whenever it comes to realization was, we have old stories, prophecies about the times whenever we was going to get to this point where most of us wouldn't know our language. Whenever that was being shared with her, it was being told to her only in Cheyenne and by someone who couldn't speak English. And whenever she told me about that, I asked her, I said, did you ever think that in your lifetime that you would have seen that shift happen that fast from your grandparents to your grandkids? And she said, I never would have thought that it would have been in my lifetime.
Yeah, and that's it's time. You get to my age, hey, you realize things happen. Even not paying attention, things will pass you by really quickly. And I like, when someone has a child and you got a little baby and people say, hey, it won't be long to be driving, things like that. And you don't want to, short, the parent with a child, but I saw a chart one time. It shows you really in the course of 18 to 20 years, you have an infant for like that long and a toddler for just barely that long, and then they turn 12, and then it's all over, and it's a hot mess. And anyway, I'm way past that, thank God. My kids are much older. So let me ask you. I know I wanted to ask you this, Shaynna. So to get this straight, I would think people need to know that. Fortunately, for the Cheyenne side of this, that we still have elders here that you can go physically visit and speak with, but the Arapaho program is not able to do that, and so you said you Zoom with people up in E16 and that area, and one thing I'll mention, because I know this, but I don't want to get into it. There are slight differences, right? In the dialects, is that correct?
Yeah, there is.
But it's not anything to freak out about, right?
No, it's really not. I think what really pointed out to me was someone from New York is going to understand someone from Oklahoma. So to me, the dialects is, if you're talking Arapaho, or any kind of language, they're going to understand.
As long as communication is happening, that's a good thing, right? That's real pivot. So talk to me about that. Is it that you Zoom with them online every day, or what kind of schedule do you have?
So whenever we first started, it was 4 hours a day, 3 days a week. We worked from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That was at first, I think at that point there was a sense of urgency. So we were just trying to grab everything that we can. But, creating those relationships with them, they started, they're like, you guys, you can slow down, you guys can, it's okay. So we started slowing things down, and then the grant ended, and we realized planning sessions were really, really big. So we started planning our sessions, that would fit around their schedules. So we have a schedule made up, but really we call them, and we're like, anytime you guys want to get on, we're ready, we're available to work. So a lot of the times it's Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays still. About 3 hours a day still.
And you all have been able to visit them in person, right?
Yes, thankfully we do have a trip once a year up there. And it's super fun, the amount of language that we get while we're there. It blows, the 3 hours.
It's invaluable, I suppose.
Yes. It's just to hear those sounds, just to, really be with them, it just completely changes your session.
I'm curious, what kind of, has this been a technological challenge at all?
So I would say I'm our techie person.
All right.
On our side. With the elders, yes. We had to teach them for a while, still kind of to this day, how to work Zoom.
And audio is not fun. Audio is not easy all the time.
No, especially if it's windy or if it snows up there. Really anything is going to disrupt this, the sound, but they'll just say what? I can't hear you. They'll yell at you, and you're regroup, restart. But the technological stuff, it was just another, roadblock, but we worked our way through it.
But just imagine if we didn't have it. I mean, God.
Yes. We tried phone calls, calling somebody, but, they have their flip phone and they're whipping it out and everything. And it just wasn't really that well. But Zoom wasn't the first, software that we tried to use. We tried GoToMeeting, Google, Skype, all kinds of stuff. But Zoom has the strongest connection that we've had, so we were using it
before we don't have
before the
stock
pandemic.
In that. Yeah. And one thing I was talking with someone about not long ago. It's different. Like I said, with the Cheyenne folks here, you can actually go visit, and and maybe Mike can speak to this in a minute. But Cheyenne and Arapaho folks came from up north, and then they had a huge area that spanned through Colorado and right in Kansas, Nebraska, and then we ended up here. Then some went back, and I'm assuming I think we've talked about the folks up in the northern Arapaho folks up there. I'm guessing that area is much more. What's the word? I'm not going to say it's isolated, but there's
Remote.
but the remote, yeah, and that there's a. It's like there's a community that's there, and it's not very spread out. Is that? And I'm guessing if it wasn't like that, you probably wouldn't be getting all the language that you're getting, right?
Yeah, so that's whenever we work with those fluent speakers, the number one place, that where they're located is E16. And it's crazy because right where they live within that, honestly, like a mile to 5 miles, there's so many fluent speakers
Yeah.
in that area. And we're lucky enough to work with, there's 4 of them. At one point we worked with 5. But, some of them,
But it's so awesome to know that there are potentially another 20 or 30 or 40 that you could work with.
Yes, and you'll hear them talk about them, but a lot of them are just like super shy,
Yeah.
or they don't have internet connection, or they don't have someone there to help them set something up. So, but yeah, just like in that little area right there's a lot of fluent speakers right there. So it's really neat.
One thing we talked about just a little bit about northern versus southern, and I know there are folks here who say, I've heard them say, "You're teaching them northern," and I'll like I think you heard me say this one time. I said, "Hey man, if I'm in a boat and my butt falls in the ocean, I need you to throw me a life preserver, Michael. And I don't care what color or what shape or what stinking language it is, just throw it to me when you get back in the boat." When I get back in the boat, then we can argue over what language. But until then, just save me, brother. Just help me out. That's all I'm saying. So, I that's what I think. I think people need to know, man. This is urgent, and I would say probably any tribe in America, the things that are happening right now, the great things that you guys are doing, probably every tribe will say we should have been doing this 30, 40 years ago. You can't go. You can't go back and put the toothpaste back in the tube, but man, we just got to start making progress ASAP, right? And so is that how you guys come to work? I mean, like my little job here, I'm like, hey, what are we doing today? But I mean, like you guys are on a mission, and it's like I know we all have. I mean, if we didn't enjoy these jobs, we wouldn't do it. I certainly wouldn't do this job if I didn't enjoy it. But I know that you guys do as well. So, but it's like I see what you guys do, and I was like, man, I'd feel the pressure to, like every day, fill another part of my brain with some language. Do you guys feel that?
Every day, like even when we're not having sessions, we're still calling each other out. Like you got those words we went over yesterday, and you're like. No, so you have to be really, comfortable with, being honest with yourself and.
Ooh, say that again. Comfortable with what?
Being honest with yourself.
Oh, that cut to the bone right there. I felt that one in my soul. Honest with yourself.
I mean, really, because if you're not, you're gonna have, thankfully, a teammate next to you or your coworker next to you that's gonna be like, say that one more time. You're gonna say Jenny. Like if you're messing up on like a pitch accent, or something's wrong. So
yeah, I was, we had some of your folks in here earlier just today. They were recording some audio, getting some pronunciations so we can record some audio for our kids show, Fry Bread Flats. And I was talking about. I remember when we first started doing that. I just, I didn't know that much. I just thought grandma was grandma's. No, my grandma, your grandma, her grandma, his grandma, my friend's grandma. Oh golly, there's so many and. Yeah, it's in a way it's like English. There are different, I went, I have gone, I did go, that type of thing. There's it's future, past, and present tense, and there's all that. And then, but is it the word I was asking? Is it the word for mother and bear that's very similar in Cheyenne? Let's hear them.
Okay, mother knuckle, bear knuckle.
Oh, see. Now, granted, they're close to the same thing because you don't want to mess with mother bear. But one Nako and
Nako.
Nako. And then there's Nako which is my mother, right? Oh, see? So there's that. And it's funny, I think, like I said, I don't not even a member of this tribe, but people have said to me before, well, which one is easier to learn? I said, neither. Each one is, I in my observation, I mean, each language has its own really cool things about it, and I think we're really fortunate that that it has been written, maybe, not in the way that the Cherokee syllabary is, but that people have someone down the line, someone took the time to spell out the word where, all these decades later we can read it. Having a background, you can read it and know what that accent means and that little symbol means. Just think if we didn't have it written at all, I mean, it would make your jobs a lot tougher, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, the written sources, although the Master Apprentice sessions, as mentioned, don't focus on reading and writing during the process. It's just the practice and build of conversation. What I found about the written sources is that even though that's not a primary focus of any session, it's a good thing to kind of look at for fillers, for words that are forgotten. Whenever you come across them in sessions, you'll hear an elder speaker mention. They'll say like, "No one need to know. I forgot this word," and you can see they kind of struggle with it a little bit, and then sometimes they'll come back to mind in that session. But whenever it doesn't, I'll go back and look at all the written sources and say, "Hey, there's that word." And so, yeah, they've been good for word fillers, and there has been a lot of work on the written portion, and then the buildup of audio.
And the what?
Audio.
Oh, okay, yeah. There's so many pieces to this. I mean, let's start with not start. We've already started. What is? Let me ask, and I'll ask you, you ladies, each one of you. Start with you, Rainey. What is the toughest part about this mission, this project that you found?
Excuse me. I would say just trying to get your mind to think outside of the English scope. The languages are way different. Cheyenne to English, a lot of people are like, here, translate this into Cheyenne. It doesn't really work that way, Cheyenne is a whole different way of thinking, of talking.
Wow. See, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
So it's really, Michael has mentioned, it's like, what is your inner thoughts? Like, what is the language in your inner thoughts? It's like always English, we're constantly surrounded by English. So it's
That's
really
what we're doing right now.
Yeah. So it's just really combating that and trying to really make yourself think outside of your English brain and trying to really dive into the language, the thinking of the language, the pronunciations and all those different types of things.
How about you, Shaynna?
I would say that as well. I really agree with that. It's so funny. Some of them are like, that's too English. That's English, and they won't translate it, or they won't. You spend like hours planning, trying to get something, that you're like, okay, this is gonna work. This is gonna be good, and then they're like, what? Like, you wouldn't say that, or they're.
It doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't make sense at all. So, definitely shaping.
Do you have an example? I mean, I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm dying to hear an example of what that would be.
I don't.
Where someone would say, "I wouldn't say that." I mean, I don't. That's okay. Maybe you can think of one later.
There's just so many.
There's so many.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
A lot.
Like, it's just a
It
whole
could
different.
be like, how do you say Happy Veterans Day?
Yeah.
Happy
birthday, or,
Yeah.
Those really common
Yeah,
things in
'cause-
English that don't really translate
Yeah.
well into Cheyenne.
Yeah, because
You have to force the Cheyenne language to fit how an English saying would be.
yeah,
Even-
I know that we had asked you for what do you call it? what's that thing called?
Translation.
You know what? Yeah, something we have run on TV. Station ID. Golly. I think we had wanted someone. You guys say you're watching Cheyenne and Arapaho television, and I think we finally got it. But it was. Probably it's the same with a number of languages, but it's different. And it's like I'm sure there's not a Cheyenne or Arapaho word for television, but it's not like, you're watching Cheyenne and Arapaho television maybe this long, but the translation was more like this, and I don't think it was. I think it was maybe one of your other coworkers who gave us that, but because I know that people ask you guys that a lot. Just they think you can just throw it out there, and it's like, no. First of all, we got to check with, one of our elder experts, and then there's no word for cell phone. There was one that you guys have come up with, right?
There's been modern words for some of these, and there's at least 2 words for that we use for television, even though it doesn't translate exactly how TV, the English word for it, television. There's one, vigilistas, the thing that you watch, or miquiltistas, kind of like that thing that where the pictures, kind of referring back to the older way of how film would work.
And those, that's what I was going to mention. You mentioned, what's the, what do you call the, like we said, oh God, there's so many little nuances. I think probably more in Cheyenne, and just from what I've seen, like when we said na go. I mean, things like that, or I've come across a lot of words that have a tss on the end.
That's in both.
Yeah, that's so. To me, that's got to be the most difficult thing to pick up on, because that's just it's if we learn in English, that's totally just something you would never, but the thing is, and it can change the meaning of the word. Something that ends up like, with an a long sound versus something that's, or something ends in that sound,
Oh, the X sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the word for 10? Oh.
Got it?
Oh, is it nita? Is that
One more.
is it nita tach?
Yeah, that's 9.
Did I say it right?
Yeah. No, that's 6.
6. What's the one that show me?
Betetach.
Oh yeah, betetach.
Yeah.
But that's how you say it, right?
Yeah.
Ah, look at there. Hey. Hey, all right.
Go, Jared.
But there's a lot of stuff like that, which I get when I first came here. I'm like, now, tell me that again. No, because I mentioned my tribe. I'm enrolled in the Coach T Pueblo tribes, and my given name that they gave me, I can't really say it because it has something like that, and I can't even make that sound. So there's just a lot of stuff like that. But I know. It is interesting. Both languages have things like that. To me, that would be just, or do you get in a mindset that that's coming, and you expect it, or how do you know when you do that right?
They'll let you know.
They
will tell you
I was waiting on
straight
that.
up.
Elders don't play around. I'll tell you.
They don't.
Nope.
Not at all.
Nope. Say it again, little missy.
Or your coworkers too. They're like, no, they didn't say it like that, or you got to do the X sound better. They'll definitely call you out. So, but it's fun. It's
yeah, and let's touch on that. Let's touch that because I know, and I'm not talking about the folks you work with, but let's just be honest. I mean, probably a lot of tribes, people will for lack of a, let's call it. I'm gonna just call it language shaming. It's like. I've seen it happen, someone who is trying to learn the language, and someone will say, man, they don't know what they're talking about. And why would you want to do that? I just think, I don't get that part. It's a thing though, right? I've seen it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a thing.
Someone who's trying to learn, I just don't think that's the last thing they need is some negativity. Ooh, what I'm saying? Hey, I'm a preacher here. We're supposed to encourage folks, not discourage them, baby. You know what I'm saying? We ain't supposed to hold them down. We're supposed to lift them up.
Yeah.
Woo! Somebody say amen. How do you say amen in Cheyenne? I don't know. See, there's one. What's that? Well, what have I missed here? What's something great about your program that I didn't ask you yet?
I would say the most overlooked thing is how far we really go into a phrase or a word. We conjugate, we change those. Like, you brought up past, present, and future, all the way down to plurals. That's what we do day in, day out. On top of changing those out, we confirm them. So everything that we're getting, that we're putting out, we really, really confirm any which way around. And obviously, yes, we're still learners, but we're still calling a speaker. And I think that's a really, really big thing that we do. We really confirm things. We don't want to put anything out, that would be wrong. Like I said, we are still learners, but the amount of research that goes into one phrase, is extensive. What we do now is timestamp. We record everything, audio, with our speakers, and we start timestamping now, just to go back and recheck ourselves. And
Oh,
hold
yeah.
on, I don't know if I said that right, and we'll go back and we'll check, and then we'll double check, and then we'll keep going back. So now, but I do think that is often overlooked. The amount of research that really goes in. We're not just going in having one session. One session is preparing you for the next session.
Yeah.
Is preparing you for the next session.
You're building on each one, I suppose.
Yeah.
Same with you, Rainey?
Yeah, I agree. Just the amount of work that goes into language learning, the amount of time we spend with speakers, it's not taken lightly. We really do try to do our best. Like Shaynna said, we're still new learners. We don't have that first language perspective, breadth of how to speak the language, but we do our best, and we really take the time to spend with these elders to try to provide that for our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike, let me ask you this: how do you all measure your success or your your progress? I know that when there's a grant involved, it's just data driven, But this is something that we're not, every day. We're not filling out worksheets here every day, and like, what is a Cheyenne word for? It's not like that. It's a very organic. I was gonna say holistic, but that's not really the word. That's a cool sounding word, but organic, I think, because you're not in a classroom, and you don't have they're not passing out sheets of paper. Okay, write this down, but. It's learning. It's very much immersion, but sometimes it's immersion by distance. But it seems to be working. How do you measure progress?
For every new apprentice that I work with, I start off with recording them on their first day, and then every other week, for sure every month, to show them where they started, and then reflect back on how far they come along every month, and in those recordings, just work on whether it's their introduction or how they respond to questions. And so, for the most part, anyone who's going to start on their first day won't have any responses. Sometimes a few will, and but most won't have any kind of response when you try to speak any Cheyenne to them. And then whenever you do a progress video a month later, I'm always amazed of how much someone can pick up in 1 month's time. I feel like that first month to a year, and anyone's language journey is very crucial to their foundation. And whenever they put in the work early on, it's they'll usually keep on that track. And so I'll check back another 2 months later, do another video, and then you'll just see how their responses are just building. And I always tell them early on that just give them the full scope that it's not going to be easy, and that there's going to be challenges that'll come with it, frustrations, and I just mentioned the more work they put into what they do, the more results they'll get out of it. And so whenever they get to that point to where they're just comfortably talking, I'll say, oh, okay, let's go back and look at all these other videos where you started. And then it kind of like brings up their mood, and they, all right, well, I didn't realize I didn't know that much at that point.
Yeah.
And so that's one major portion of how I always like to keep track of progress. And on the written side, we do have a linguist within the department, and he's been working on assessments and the data-driven portion where people want numbers. There are linguistic terms, and there are levels that are broke down in those terms, and he works on them pretty often, and works with both groups, Cheyenne and Arapaho's.
As you were talking, I was thinking about, I've seen that you all offer a lot of Zoom classes. I guess there's Zoom online. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this for a minute. You gotta promote those while you're here.
So for our side, we didn't really have much participation on our Zoom. So we're just now gonna try to start getting our Zoom classes going.
Didn't I hear you say that there was a whole bunch during the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And that's like a lot of stuff, that flattened out a little bit because people didn't have to be home on their computer. But now you were saying that it's picking back up, right?
Yeah, we're hoping to pick it back up. We've had a few of our regulars who were interested, asking, when's class going to come back? We do have in-person community classes that we've been going throughout our communities. On the Cheyenne side, we service 6 communities: Hammond, Clinton, Sealing, Watonga, Concho, Kingfisher. Those are the main communities we focus on. As the department was made for each program, we were able to split the Apprentice side from the outreach side. So we're really trying to build our outreach efforts to try to expand them, where we can have in-person classes, virtual classes, online material for people, tribal members, whoever wants to learn. We're going to start our Zoom classes back. It'll be every week on Wednesdays, and then we'll have different events every month in the 6 communities.
And where could they find info about that?
On the Cheyenne and Arapaho Department of Language and Culture Facebook page.
All right. How about you, Shaynna? Same thing?
Something
thing. Similar?
Yeah, pretty much the exact same thing.
Same communities?
No. Concho, Gary. We do go out to Clinton, Canton, and we attempted to have some in Watonga and Clinton. I think we're our least numbers, but regardless, if there's one person coming out, we're gonna return. But that's the main thing. Definitely starting up our Zoom classes. Same thing. Our numbers went down. We were having a good amount of people. A lot of people from Wyoming were joining.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, that was really fun. But they just went down, and I don't know if it's like the day, the time,
And when was that?
Like
When did they dip? When were those numbers down?
I would say right at last year. Yeah, I mean, even before the summer, like they went down, quite a bit. But regardless of how much they went down, we had a good consistent like 8
Yeah.
people.
Hey, that's what I was
Yeah.
waiting on.
They were calling, social media. They were getting in contact with us like, hey, are we having class next week? And we're like, well, no one jumped on this week. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I was doing this, but I'll be on tonight.
Mhm.
We're like, okay, so even if it was just like 1 or 2 people, we still went on. We're still going.
And if the information can be found in the same place.
Yes, same place, Cheyenne and Arapaho Language and Culture Department.
And real quickly, before we get out here, we got to mention there's an app.
Oh
Yeah.
Somebody talk about that. Push the app, baby.
The stressful app where everybody got COVID.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, you guys remember now. Yeah.
We didn't get COVID. Yeah.
Who had COVID? It was the
It wasn't
app
me.
people. It was the app
Oh, it
people.
was, yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it was
they
bad.
just calling people out.
Yeah.
But
But thanks to you guys. Thanks to you guys.
yeah,
Y'all came
we
through,
helped a little bit. We were able to
a
help.
lot.
So tell people about it, where they find it, what it's called.
So we do. It's almost 2 years old or 3 now.
No, not 3.
2022.
Two.
I think it's about 2.
Two.
Yeah. So we did create a language app. It's kind of phase 1, so it's pretty basic language on there. You can find it on Apple, Google, I believe on the internet as well. It's just Cheyenne and Arapaho language. It'll have the tribal logo on there. And yeah, it's really useful. We've had a lot of people
Yeah,
come and tell us how
It's
much
broken
they
down
enjoy
into like
it.
greetings and nouns and numbers and
All
stuff
kinds
like
of different
that, yeah.
categories.
Leave
I mean-
takings.
Yeah.
What?
Leave takings. I always thought that sounded funny.
But yeah, I know that I keep forgetting that I have that, and so people ask me, I don't know what that means. I say that, and I'll go knock on somebody's door across the hall, and I'm like, oh, I got the app.
Mm-hmm.
So and the great thing is, the app has speakers who. You're on it, Mike. Are you on it? Mike?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know Dr. Manna's on it, and we have so many people on that who really know those words and they pronounce them properly, and that's a really cool thing to have, just to have. So, well, guys, see, you were all nervous about this. You were like, "How are we going to go 30 minutes? I can't
Yeah.
talk that long." Listen,
Yeah.
she's been talking all day.
Yeah, all morning.
Well, the great thing is, we're going to get done in time to go to lunch. Yeah.
Bake sale.
Yeah.
Oh, bake sale.
The daycare
Concho
bake
bake
sale.
scale.
Yeah.
Go support the kids.
Support Concho babies.
Yeah.
Well, by the time this airs, it won't be Valentine's Day anymore. So, anyway, just so enjoy your Barry White songs today. Y'all Barry White fans, aren't you? Okay, good. I thought it was gonna be funny. Oh wow. So thank you all for joining. And like I said, if one thing we didn't talk about is it's called Language and Culture, and today we were just talking about language, which we still could go for another 30, 40 minutes obviously. But I think it would probably a good idea is to come back and we talk about the culture side, which is a whole other. That's another hour and a half or so. And
Yeah, and then we've been working on tying them together.
Yeah.
Whenever they're working on these language sessions, working on cultural subjects that we could also build up on practicing as well. So, like example, here in a few more weeks, there'll be another Buffalo Butcher, and we did this, that in the fall time, and then during that time, words are being picked up regarding just that practice. And so, yeah, be happy to talk about that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing.
I'm going to play you off. Well, guys, thank you all for joining us. And I want to tell you all as well, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Cheyenne and Arapaho Productions podcast right here. Take care.